we are making,
which is good.
Which is good.
Which is good.
Which is good.
We went to this school, we ran it to Western, we ran it to Northern, we ran, then you come.
Isn't that an achievement?
Objective and non-partisan.
Honorable Minister, there were a number of points. I want to start with you.
Straight from the hearts of open-minded men and women.
Money tends to move faster at night. So when people are not counting,
Don't take it for granted.
Candid and authentic.
Because Uganda is not Thailand.
That's not correct, and we should stop that kind of mentality.
So what I'm saying
That's
is
a trick question. Don't answer.
I'm not getting into that. I'm not getting into that.
Tell him you speak low.
I think that's where we are beginning to have a problem.
I think what is going to kill the parish model are all the misconceptions on how it's supposed to run.
I know that the Prime Minister is listening.
Behind the headlines.
Charles, let us agree. We liberalized the economy.
We are several nations put together.
Why don't you appreciate that?
What if it fails? I'm happy. And he's a good lawyer because I mean he's not in the power.
The parish development committee is functional. It is there. That there is a parish chief, that the beneficiaries do exist.
So we look at expenditure, we don't look at revenue, and that is the challenge we are giving them from Minister of Finance.
Your fountain of new knowledge, flowing into the mass body of knowledge.
First get the knowledge of Bukedia, how they want to be modernized.
Every Wednesday, 10 p.m. on your public broadcaster.
you return money to the treasury, which is meant for the people.
UBC, inspiring Uganda.
Well, thank you so much. It is Wednesday, the 24th of August in this year, 2022. My name is Gyagenda Ssemakula Ziksoka. Thanking you once again for being part of the show tonight. Just sitting in for Charles Odongtho, who is not right with us here. It's another very lovely evening, and we want to appreciate everyone and everybody out there in just these few minutes after the hour of 10 o'clock tonight. Welcome to UBC TV Behind the Headlines. Now, I'm used to saying different things, but here is where I am tonight, sitting in for my elder brother and senior comrade Charles Odongtho, who will be here next week on Wednesday. But it's another very lovely evening, and of course with the house full of the experts to decipher the issues this very evening. I'll start from my extreme left, the Honorable Minister Musa Echori. You're very welcome, and thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Good evening, viewers.
I just wanted to, on the onset, be very clear. I am not here as an expert, but a custodian of the policies of government, particularly in the Minister of
Not an expert in policy?
A custodian, a maker of the policies, and also a custodian. So not an expert, because if I don't want the listeners out there to say this could be one of the fellows flying the bombardiers in the country. I just want to be very clear.
What a good disclaimer.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Honorable Minister. Thank you very much. The Honorable Francis Babu, you're also very welcome, and thank you so much for making time to be with us tonight here on Behind the Headlines. Welcome.
Thank you for having us, and thank you for inviting us on this important. I'm sure a lot of people are watching it.
Thank you. Thank you, and very welcome. The Honorable Paul from Otuke, you're also very welcome. Karibu tena.
Thank you very much, and good evening, viewers.
Thank you for also having allowed to join us, and of course now the usual panelists are with us here. The Honorable Mapenduzi Ojara from Bardege, Laibi. Karibu, and thank you so much again for making it.
Thank you, my brother Ssemakula, and good evening, viewers.
And of course, Sarah Bilete, the ED of the Center for Constitutional Governance. I'm always here with Charles Odongtho. Very welcome.
Thank you, and good evening, viewers.
Let me take the opportunity to also say congratulations when you got your PhD. I've not had an opportunity to actually say that. It may have taken some time, but I think I'm in order to say congratulations.
It's like saying Happy New Year to somebody.
Because if you didn't say,
around December,
if you didn't say it to them in September, if you didn't say it to them,
well, it's better late than never.
Better late than never.
Thank you.
Yes, but very welcome. Well, the conversation tonight is just going to be centered on the aviation industry, and I think I want to have an in-depth analysis, starting with you, Honorable Babu. We talk about the aviation industry, but we also talk about the airline industry. These are usually used interchangeably, but let's first of all understand what the aviation industry and the airline industry mean.
Thank you very much. An aviation industry is very wide. It's a very wide, that's the big picture. Aviation includes civil aviation, it includes military aviation, it includes private aviation, where people have private jets, it includes private people who own the little aeroplanes like cars. In some countries, they actually have them in their backyard. You have crop dusting, where you use it for emergencies, like when you're putting out fires in these in these big countries, when they have fires. You have it for medical use, where people are ferried in medical. So aviation is a very wide perspective. But basically, it's commercial, private, military, and so on and so forth. That is what they call the aviation industry. Of course, people have got different perspectives of it, wherever you come from. In some countries, they have it. Now, we're now coming to the future. When we go into the future, we might have aeroplanes flying like cars. There are people who have got this perspective coming up. You have helicopters, which are being used for executive work in a lot of countries, where you have a lot of traffic. So aviation is becoming wider and wider, and of course, like any other business, they are looking at different perspectives. We are going to the moon now, as you know. People have gone to the moon using rockets and things like that. In the future, people think they can use those. In fact, I think Virgin and a few other people are trying to take passengers to the moon. So aviation is a very wide subject. But the one which everybody knows, the average person, is the airline. Flying and taking people as transport. Basically transport, taking people from one place to another. The other one they might know is the business people who have got executive jets that they fly big personalities. And then, of course, we have charters, the small aeroplanes that fly between places and then small businesses. In Uganda, we basically have the airline, we have military, we also have some private little aeroplanes that fly up the Cap country. We have crop dusting, where you can use them on big farms. And sometimes the other day when we had grasshoppers, you can have them to try and help on that one. We also have ambulances that fly people from one place to another. But the one which seems to be very popular nowadays and on the headline is the airline. Airline of our country, which started a few years back and is now in the headlines, and we're having all sorts of different views. Okay. Yeah. Of course, the economists are interested in that one. The Auditor General is interested in that one. The government, who are the shareholders, are interested. The people who do law are interested in knowing whether we are following the law. Mapinduzi is keeping his eye on it like a hawk. Is it working or not working? So that's basically what we have. So in short, that's the whole thing about the airline.
Thank you very much. Let me go to the custodian of policy, the Honorable Musa Echweru. We know very well that the airline now is an integral part in any country's development. We've seen this, and when you look at our national plans, etc., look at the Vision 2040, NDP 2, 3, all these things, bringing the airline on board was intended to enhance development, and that's where we are. When we got the Uganda airline back on its, we got the wings back into the air, I was one of the 8 Ugandans who first commercial passengers of Uganda Airlines. I and 7 others paid money, went, and of course, this is the future that we're seeing of our airline, and said we need to be there and see what it is. As a policy custodian, get us into these things. Do we have a comprehensive plan for this, or piecemeals and just getting there to see how it actually works? Maybe something could just happen to us.
First of all, again, thank you so much. And viewers out there, I want to put a few things straight on the onset. We have now a fully fledged Uganda Airlines with the 6 aeroplanes.
That's our fleet.
And the future of Uganda Airlines is very bright. I have had the privilege personally, in my capacity as minister in charge of works, to fly in our Bombardier. We have flown, have benefited within the region, and I must say it is very smooth. I must also say it rekindles the kind of pride that we had lost. Now that you can be in your own plane and piloted by your own citizens, and really feeling like it is better than some of those that the neighbors have proudly owned for some time. A little bit of history. Way back in the 80s, we had our Uganda Airlines again. Unfortunately, because of so many factors, that time may not allow us to really dissect very well here. It collapsed. And when it collapsed, we were off air for many years. And that was not good for Uganda. Not good for Uganda in the sense that an airline flying your flag in runways that are around the world, there is some message it communicates about the country. And we're not there. And it was sometimes very depressing to go to some of these countries and you see countries which even have small economies having their airlines in those runways and with the flags of those small economies. And then we ask ourselves, what is our position? Way back in 2016-2021, the manifesto of the President of the Republic, the manifesto of the National Resistance Movement was clear that there is need for us to revive our airline. And immediately thereafter, in 2017, His Excellency the President told the country that this is something that we have thought through, it is going to come. It now needs putting in place a task force, which task force must make this happen. And indeed a task force was put in place that worked really to midwife this present day Uganda Airlines. I am happy to say that I participated, I have been around, particularly in cabinet discussions, that first critically analyzed why the other one failed. And can we, as we midwife this one, can we avoid the pitfalls that characterized the other one? And all those were laid on the table by those who knew. Fortunately, there have been people, senior citizens like Captain Babu here, who have been around, and they participated in sometimes managing some of these organizations, and they saw firsthand some of the things that sometimes were not done well, even by us government, particularly by us government. And in this direction, we said, okay, if those are the pitfalls, then we must midwife this, get it on board, get our airline back on board, and make sure that we avoid those pitfalls as much as possible. And then we went for these beautiful bombardiers, 4 of them, and then eventually we went for these carriers that can do long-haul distances, 2 of them. And I can say, yes, when that happened, then how do we avoid the pitfalls? We thought the first thing that we must do was to put in place a very robust policy-making organ of the airline, the board of directors. And we went ahead and did that. But I think there are a few things that I can confess to the viewers that we did not look at very clearly and very critically. We went for the profiles, we went for the CVs of the people who we put together to manage the airlines without doing background check on the integrity of the people. And that led into...
CVs are okay, the issue is integrity.
It is, the CVs are excellent, very, very excellent, but the integrity was wanting. And that led into the new management that came. You must have heard lately that even there are things that the Parliament, Committee of Parliament is looking at, particularly the payments and whatever. All this was as a consequence of a poor board of directors, a board of directors that was smart, intellectually very smart, but wanting in many ways. And the management was put in place, and that management found itself also then wanting. Very, very high profile personalities were there, but again lacking in many ways. And that led to the dismantling of the board and eventually also making the new board to put in place a new management. And that's where we are now. But I am happy to report to you that in the region we are doing very well. Doing very well. Not that we have not suffered any teething problems. We have had teething problems. For example, there were some embarrassing situations where our plane would go to Dar es Salaam and then they say it has no fuel for coming back. You know, that is very embarrassing. It's not acceptable in the aviation industry. Captain Babu here will tell us. But when you look at it, you will be told, when we dissected it, what could be the problem? It is a problem of transiting from the system that we had dismantled immediately to the system that we had put in place. And there's all the elements saying, okay, if that's the case, let us now come up with what we call the Samson complex. The Samson complex says, if I must die, then I must die with the world. I must go with the world. So there are people who believe that if I must leave UBC, for example, then I must go with the entire team, and if probably will even go with the corporation. So that is what we have suffered, some teething problems. But I am happy to report that now, as we talk, we go up to Dubai. Soon we should be launching a route to Guangzhou. We have also been given clearance. We are launching to the United Kingdom in Heathrow, and that is very positive. The other thing that I want Ugandans to know, while all that looks very rosy, we have not met the expectations of some of our people, partners particularly, in as far as cargo is concerned. Then very close case to cite here is Somalia. The federal government of Somalia, we recently were here discussing. There are so many things they want in Uganda, almost everything that we have. They want our fruits, they want our what, but the small aircraft cannot satisfy the market. So the country should know that we are also working around the clock to ensure that we get 2 big cargo aircrafts, and then so that we can be able to manage some of these distances and take the cargo to those distances.
Thank you so much, Honorable Musa. And I think, yeah, you've really brought it out, and of course what the government is doing to see that these things happen. At about this time in 2018, 2019, just about 3 years ago, when we started this airline, I told you, I am one of the 8 Ugandans who paid money. Each one of us paid $270 or something, about $1 million shillings to go. We were only 8 clients on that plane, went to Nairobi. I speak very good Kiswahili. We were in Nairobi at Jomo Kenyatta International.
You are lucky to be a Muganda speaking good Kiswahili.
I speak very good
Kiswahili.
Kiswahili.
Babu, the rest
I am East African. but you see, we had a problem. Ab initio, our return flight was delayed. And it was delayed deliberately because there is competition. KQ ground staff did some delays there, and they were saying all these things because they realized there was competition now that had come on, that had come into it. And I don't know whether people who are running the airline actually very aware of this kind of competition. You just made a very good submission and said we had very good CVs, but we didn't have integrity. The discussion today and the conversation today has actually now shifted. I do not know whether now we have both or we lost one again and picked up another. But that's another conversation that we'll get into. It's some good thing to actually all of us say we need this airline. The euphoria. I want you to look at the way we received the Bombardiers here. The way we received the Airbuses. All the things that we had in our minds. 3 years down the road, this is the airline that we talk about. It's very good to know that we will go to Guangzhou, we'll go to Heathrow, we'll go to anywhere. All these people have their own things in as far as the aviation industry is concerned. But how does it feel when they're preparing for us landing space in Guangzhou, but they're hearing the conversation and the stories from here? They're preparing for us somewhere in Gatwick or Heathrow, and the conversation of this airline that is coming to them looks the way it looks like. I'm only thinking, what do all these things mean? Let me hear from Honorable Omara here from Otuke.
Thank you very much. Having listened
to the minister,
no, to the expert, and then also now to the custodian, let me bring in the economic aspect of this industry. Globally, actually, the airline industry or aviation industry is a very big thing. If you quantify it, it's actually a $3.5 trillion economy. That is extremely huge in terms of the basket.
Bigger than the African economy.
It's very, very big. And that actually constitutes 4.1% of the global GDP, which means it is a very, very important industry. And in terms of employment right now, it's employing 65.5 million people. So it's an industry which we cannot ignore. However, if you look at the statistics, in 2018, 4.3 billion people traveled. That is 2018. Now, when the COVID period set in, by 2021, the number of travelers had dropped by 50% to 2.2 billion people traveling in 2021. So I can hear the sense of optimism which is being provided by our minister. But the reality is that because of the global financial crisis which took place in 2008, and also the post-COVID period, which actually really battered the airline industry in such a big way, it's going to make it very difficult for us to quickly recover, even far below the projections which we had provided. When you come to Uganda, just to give the numbers there, from the audited accounts, the financial year 2019-2021, Uganda Airlines lost 102 billion shillings. Now, consequently, in the financial year 2020-2021, it lost 164 billion shillings. And then, in 2021-2022 financial year, has lost 232 billion shillings. So the minister, from your projections, the numbers are not positive. The numbers are going downwards in terms of the profitability of the airline. So in total, in the 3-year period, we have lost 498 billion shillings. Now, with the kind of publicity and the crisis that we're having at the moment, it does not harbor well for our flagship airline, the Uganda Airlines. I was talking to a friend a few days ago, 2 days ago. He had booked the Uganda Airlines, on Uganda Airlines, to travel with the family for a holiday, which is a good thing that I would encourage all of us to do, because these aircrafts are new.
That's true.
They're new aircrafts, but because of the management issues which the minister has talked about, very corrupt board and not suitable to run, and appointed by us, these board members. And then now you have the investigations which is being undertaken by the Committee of Parliament. It does not give confidence to the general public to climb the airlines. Because now if you doubt the board and you doubt the management, what comes to mind is that because they are running a deep cost outlay, they can actually fictitiously, in terms of repairing the aircraft, can use substandard spare parts. And when you are up in the skies, the fuselage can give way because of a nut, a bolt, which is fake.
That's the reason the board was dismantled. We now have a new board.
Exactly. So now this person said, because I have to think about my family and the safety of my family, we had to withdraw and book on Kenya Airways. So this is a very sensitive industry that must not be played with in terms of the people we put on the board and also the management team that we put to manage the airlines. Because people are sensitive, people have to make a decision to climb onto the aircraft. And if they don't believe that it's being properly serviced, the people who are running it are incompetent, then there is a sense in which you will only fly 8 of you, and not as many people will fly the airline. So I would want to urge the minister that we must be very serious with Uganda Airlines if we want it to move where we want it to be. And I am glad that they have taken action and put in place a new board. But I'm also still not very confident listening to the board chairman talking recently before the Committee of Parliament. Because you see, let me say this. The President of Uganda has the executive power to appoint anybody within his mandate, or that executive power to countermand an appointment by any minister, because he's the supremo. What is important is those who have been mandated to implement the presidential directive needs to make sure that the governance process must be followed. If you are a board and somebody is sent to you, why wouldn't you say, okay, we have received your CV, we have a number of applicants who have come through, let's subject you to an interview process, make your presentation, and let's look at you. Let's have all the documents in place. But you cannot abandon the entire interview process, which are, you know, the government of Uganda has spent 98 million shillings, 98.1, to undertake that process. You abandon it and you just go after one individual, and you make the president look bad. So the president would direct and say, okay, consider this person. But you as a board, what do you do? So in my view, Mr. Minister, even the current board you have in place, they're incompetent. They must know that you have to follow the due process, the governance process. They must take responsibility. You're not going to say it's the president who appointed. No. You are the board, you're responsible.
No.
And so I don't know what is wrong with Ugandans. You know, people are terrified. There's a big sense of trepidation if they hear the president has directed. The president of Uganda directs and he works within the ambits of the law.
That's true.
It doesn't work outside the law. Now, those of you who have been appointed to the board, you must make sure that you do the due process and you clean it up, and making sure that if anybody is going to come, an auditor is going to come. Like, for example, recently we are having in the Committee of Parliament, an HR would bring a file of a CEO and a finance person or any other person, and then you find what is on the file is a Senior 6 certificate, and there's nothing more. Why wouldn't you actually make sure all the documents are in place? So that's my view in terms of what we really need to do. We need to make sure that Ugandans have trust in Uganda Airlines, and that we trust the management behind it, and we know that it can take us to our destination.
Okay, thank you very much. And you know, you did very good to give us a figure to know. It just helps and benefits the public to know what we're talking about and to see whether it's really a viable venture that we should get into, or is something else. But you know, I traveled to South Africa recently, about a week or two ago, and the person I was traveling with, because this person was actually funding the travel, I said, let's go Uganda Airlines, let's fly Uganda Airlines. And I said, no, if you're going Uganda Airlines, then pay your own ticket. If I'm paying the ticket, it should be another airline. And we had to move from Uganda Airlines to Kenya Airways again, to KQ, just because of trust issues. I kept saying, no, you know, these are very good Airbuses, these are new vessels, new vessels. And he said, go with your new vessels, I will not use it. A Ugandan who detests it to that level. And because it's about what we hear and what we see with the airline. Ndugu Mapenduzi, come to the conversation. Here is where we are. Trust issues. We look at an airline, we do not know. Very many things are happening back and forth. Are we good students of our own history? Because when the minister was submitting, he said we have to look at all the things. First of all, we've had an airline here before. What happened to it? What caused its downfall? What did we learn? When we're getting into all these processes, first of all to say, let's go and get the CRJs from Canada. What were we looking at? When we decided to go to Toulouse and say, let's go and get the Airbuses, what we're looking at? All these things, and where did you want to see this airline in the next years?
Well, I'll start with and of course I'll have to respond to the question you gave. From the time Uganda Airlines came back, 2019, I have had the opportunity to use the airline about 4 times. The first time was a bit skeptical because I'd used other airlines. So the first time I was kind of anxious. I wanted to know a lot of things and whether, you know, it's real and whether we have the capacity and trying to. It happens, especially if you, it's common with people who travel a lot and use other, you know, airlines and all that. So that was my first experience, and it was a good one. The second one, I had built a lot of confidence. The third and the fourth was actually the recent one. Recently, I came back from Nairobi. And so all these trips, I had built, you know, I had gained a lot of confidence in the company.
Very patriotic.
And so hearing all these discussions and all that, and for me who has been, you know, traveling using this company, what I know as a traveler and what I see and hear are not, you know. So for me, I bring hope. Yes, and sometimes we kill our own initiative as a country, because what is going on in Parliament right now is an exercise that is intended to strengthen and better, because we have audit activities carried every year. And the committee that is currently involved in, you know, scrutinizing this audit report and looking at the activities of the airline is doing its usual report of considering audit, usual work of considering audit reports. And of course, the committee is mandated by law and based on our own procedures as Parliament. There are things that the committee has to do. And so, but in doing so, the intention is to make sure that we improve where we have got challenges and all that. But I think sometimes the way the discussion is taken, and so, just as Honorable Paul and the Honorable Minister put it, the kind of image being created scares people. All right. And for me, I think what we need to do as a country is to make sure we take whatever finding that the auditors, you know, got, and what is going to come from the committee, you know, activities as a tool to make sure we create improvement. And so for me, I take it positively. But there are about 2 or 3 key things that I have to look at. One, just as Honorable Omara put it, the industry has had a big setback as a result of the pandemic, COVID-19. And I was looking at statistics. When you see in 2019, and this is general, 2019, on a daily basis, averagely about 5,000 passengers
transited
would use Entebbe on a daily basis. But when COVID came, it went down by almost less than 50%, went completely down. And the information we have is that by May this year, there's been improvement. It had improved to about 4,000 passengers on a daily basis. Okay? But has not yet hit where 2019 was. So there is improvement, and that means that the improvement is going to take time. Gradual, but will take time. And this is not only with Uganda. The same is happening in Kenya. The same is happening elsewhere. I was looking at, including making losses, I was looking at Kenya Airways. I was reading some document where it's reported that Kenya Airways made about when you convert to Uganda shilling, about 300 billion.
It's 9.89 billion as of June.
Exactly.
Kenya money. That's about 9.9 loss.
Yeah, that's so when you convert, I think one Kenya shilling is about 30 Uganda shilling. So when you look at 9.89 billion Kenya shilling, that's about 30 billion. 300 billion Uganda shilling. So it's across board. Uganda is having a similar experience, Kenya and all that. So that means we have to do much more if we want to fit into that competitive, business environment. and learn from the experiences of other, countries and how they are doing. But there are a few things that I have picked from the debate that is currently moving on. One is the question of how much losses we are making as a country, and just like Honorable Paul put it. Looking at the time the company came back, should I say on road?
In the air.
In the skies. In the skies.
The time the company came back, be it on road or in the sky, 2019.
2019.
And before, and this is my own analysis. So 2019, and the time you have to begin to build, COVID comes in.
Yes.
Okay? And then this is 2020. Last year was, we were in lockdown and all that. It's only this year that the country has started getting back to business and all that. And so if we are going to be fair, we should also be able to look at the time the company came back, when business kicked off, the time it should have spent to build and begin to move on, and then when COVID came in. And so our projection should be that we need to do much more, actually much more than the other countries, to make sure the company is able to move and recover much faster. Okay. Because we started not so long ago, a year after COVID hit, and then now we are talking about the losses. So these are things that and it's extremely challenging to deal with new initiatives when you have this kind of situation coming in. Now, the question of how much I have seen the media is flooded with how much the employees are paid and all that. And for me,
that's nothing.
For me, it's not about how much somebody is paid. That's not the biggest thing to me. To me, it's about what standard is created, how the system works, and how much money is being made, and how vibrant and what kind of future the company is putting for the country. The moment whatever is being done gives hope, and we have a target to hit, and we know we are going to go even much beyond the other competing, companies like Kenya Airways, be it Rwanda Air, and so on. So that should be the main thing. But where I get a bit concerned is then the question of the size of our fleet. 6. We have 6 planes. So this is a small company. It's still small. So when you start, forgive me for using this example, when you run a kiosk, how you are going to run that kiosk to sustain it is going to be extremely different from how you run a supermarket. Because then you need to know your capacity and how you are going to economize things so you can have an opportunity to build. So are we being extravagant as a country? That is a question for debate. Are we committed to building, or we want to spend whatever little money we have got, how should I put it, in an extravagant way, and we don't build it. So these are things that needs to be checked, and I'm happy that the Honorable Minister said they saw challenges and gaps, and they're trying to work on that.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you, Honorable Jara. And I think what we all appreciate is it's patriotism to all of us, it's nationalism to all of us, and we all speak hope. Why we actually even in these conversations, because we want this thing to survive.
That's right.
We're not getting into the Samson conundrum that talks about we would rather break it, and we all want it to see, we all want to see it happen. And you see, what you need to realize is Uganda Airlines has very good and experienced pilots, very good and experienced engineers, very good and experienced flight operators.
Actually, the last time I traveled, I think either the pilot or somebody who spoke sounded like Honorable Captain.
maybe inducted by Babu also. But they are very experienced pilots, very experienced. And I think the problem is even not about who is running or managing that bird in the air and all the things. It should be somewhere. It should be somewhere, and I think this is where we all need to get into, to say, for example, are we running a supermarket or are we running a kiosk? And who is running our kiosk if we're running a kiosk? And I think this is where Dr. Sarah should come in. The problem is not that we do not have very good pilots. These are pilots who have been everywhere in the world. The issue is, how are we running our airline? How are we going to grow it? COVID came in. When you get back into history and look at all these other airlines, Ethiopian Airlines was started by, I think, Emperor Haile Selassie many years ago. 1945 to date, you can't say they've not been pandemics or epidemics or wars or anything, but they've struggled to sustain and keep it there amidst all the challenges that they have as a country. But it decided to say Ethiopian Airlines will be here. We talk about an airline that has about 120, 30 fleet, you know? Yes, exactly. With so many destinations across the globe. They're struggling, but of course keeping it there. Dr. Sarah,
when you give me a chance,
come into the conversation. Where is the problem? What we need to fix, and how we need to give hope to all Ugandans that it's our airline. We need to keep it there, and we need to fly Uganda Airlines.
Yeah, for the record, I've flown the airline on several occasions.
How did you feel?
That's why I started with that. I think I've flown the airline 5 times, 3 in the region and 2 outside East Africa. Very comfortable, with good customer care. I have lost my luggage once while I was coming from South Africa, and it took me a week
to get it.
Yeah, that was at the beginning of Omicron breakout, and flights were fully booked. I think that was the cause. But the manner in which I've just had a not good experience once, and that's the time. Recently I was in Arusha. I went through Air Tanzania and came back on Uganda Airlines. Wow, the difference was big. You would really see that Uganda Airlines is a class apart and has potential. But I think it's also important to underscore the fact that international civil aviation standards apply to whoever is in international space. And that controls the standards and quality of pilots and qualifications and arrest. And I wish we can live from those standards. Because if you are to run airline as a business, then you need to know that, like tourism, it has to be attractive. It has to be attractive. And the argument of patriotism at times does not carry weight. We have to weigh ourselves against international standards. We should not weigh ourselves against mediocre standards in the name of patriotism. So where have we benchmarked from? What are our standards? What are our systems? What are our values? And what infrastructure are we building to make sure that we avoid the issues that led to the collapse of the national carrier?
Yes.
The national carrier collapsed on the weight of mismanagement, led by abuse of office and power and patronage. If you look at the 3-year experience, COVID notwithstanding, the Honorable Minister has told us they've had to disband a board, literally like after 1 year of operation, because of mismanagement and incompetence. If we are to give the 6 months of COVID, where the airline was not operational, but also we have to know that it was doing the limited work it was doing, although not largely commercial. In the 2nd year of business, because the airline business is really picking up, and I've seen just amidst Kenya is making losses, they've made 76% increment on their revenue. So airline business is picking up globally, and then we are hit with another mismanagement scandal as a country. Auditor General's report, the credentials of the people who are the face of the airline. I think we should not downplay these matters. And when you are going to buy a ticket, you don't have to be unpatriotic to say, but the way the things I'm reading, am I safe? Because you are in space. You are going to surrender your life to other people's hands to manage. So which choice did you make? Nobody has ever made a choice to drown. If you want to enjoy swimming, swimming is a luxury. It has also dangers, but nobody has ever signed to drown. So how are we portraying this airline? What is the face? The two trustees for the Uganda National Carrier are Minister of Works and Minister of Finance on behalf of Ugandans. When you have an audit report, because an audit goes through processes, Auditor General will talk to the people, will discuss issues with you before they sign their management position. So these key entities knew what they were dealing with, even before the public came to know. So if Parliament is doing its work, and again here it is important to underscore the fact that a system is as good as its checks and balances. Why do we see scattered efforts of the executive trying to interfere with the work of Parliament? Why? You know what the auditor put before you. You know the work of Parliament to discuss and adopt the Auditor General's reports. There is no surprise on the part of stakeholders. Secondly, if you look at the President's letter on 24th April, he did not give a recommendation to the ministry. He did not give a ministry choice. He signed an appointment letter. I have a copy here.
Sarah, no.
No. I don't know what it means. So if I'm wrong, then it would mean that it's the ministry who decided to bungle their own recruitment process. Because even that, I think, should be clear to Ugandans. I have a letter here signed by the President, and it reads, 24th April 2022, appointment of Ms. Jennifer Bamtulachi as substantive CEO, Uganda Airlines. We previously discussed, I direct that you give Jennifer a substantive appointment for 3 years. That's how it's concluded, signed YK, the President, His Excellency the President. So I don't know whether the ministry had power then to debate the President's directive. I don't even know, but the minister will tell us. I don't know whether the board had power to debate the President's directive. So when you, and the Minister of Works had set a recruitment process through KPMG, and this letter came one day to the end of a calling for applicants. So I don't know what choices they had. I don't know whether then it was their decision to go against their own set requirements in that advert that was public. And I don't know whether it was their own decision to go against the human resource manual of Uganda Airlines to recruit people that do not meet the requirements put in the money.
Dr. Saras,
yes, please.
Just information.
Yes.
And the minister is here, is the one that...
He's the custodian.
He supervises the board.
Yes.
Now, personally, I believe if I'm a minister, one of the roles of a minister is to be a chief advisor to the president.
That's true.
Now, a moment you receive a letter like that, as a minister, if I were in his position, I would go back to say, Your Excellency, we had undertaken a process which we are about to conclude. We rather advise that this lady applies and join the rest. We will manage the what? We will manage that process. Because the moment you appoint somebody directly like that, then you're bringing a problem. The question now is, how would that board supervise that special appointee? Because you've disempowered the board, literally. So we should be able to have one important thing that this country must adopt is to make sure that the system works, that the board that we have put in place, we should allow them to function. Because the moment you come and it's direct, then the board also now says, if they are fearful, they will not actually say anything. They will just say abandon whatever they were doing, and then what have you done to the system? And by the way, the problem is not with the lady CEO. I have no problem with that at all.
Point.
I think she's a brilliant lady. She qualifies. But we, the leaders, have bungled the process. We have put her to shame. We have caused the crisis. So I think, I think the president, wherever he is, and that's why we need to have very strong advisors to the president to say, Your Excellency, we've got this letter, but this is the tricky position. Let me give you a quick example. Nelson Mandela, one time, fired Winnie, who was actually his wife, fired her from the job as a deputy minister. He was advised by the Attorney General that, Your Excellency, the process that you have followed to fire the minister who is your wife is unconstitutional. Do you know what Mandela did? He went ahead, reinstated her to the job, and then followed the due process.
Of firing her?
No, of firing her, firing her from the job.
Constitutionally?
Constitutionally. Now, this is what the ministers of Uganda should be doing. You need to tell the president, Your Excellency, I hear you. I have received your letter.
Let me make this
But this
clear.
is the queer position in which you put us. We would advise that you rather do it this way.
Yes.
And that's the problem. The cabinet, you know, you have the cabinet.
Yeah,
they should do the job.
If I may conclude.
Yes, conclude, and the minister responds to that.
Yes, thank you very much, Honorable Mara, for that information and the demonstration of the point. So my question really, and if I may speak for the ordinary citizen there, do we have, as citizens, value for money or hope for value for money in Uganda Airlines? Because with a long-term investment, again, you don't expect profits in the short term. So what would give a Ugandan confidence to know that this is our pride as a nation? It is ours. What is there? And I wish Honorable Minister could speak to that. And maybe my last question, since he's coming in. So you suspended the previous board for management, for corruption, for poor performance.
Dismantled it completely.
Yes, dismantled. What safeguards did you put in place to make sure that this time the next board does not bungle the process?
We are coming to that. No, so I want to thank Sarah and the members. Two things. Let me start from this impression that has been created that President Museveni, the chief executive of this country, just like gives things that are synonymous to decrease. That's not the case. The long time I've been around, also I've had the privilege of serving in cabinet for close to for more than a decade now.
Yeah.
There are two, I can confess to viewers here, there is one occasion where I told Mzee that, Your Excellency, I have a different view from that, not this airline case, but I want to put my ideas in writing, and then you look at it, but I have a different view. In his usual way of, he told me, Mr. Chweru, Kaguta took me to school, I know how to read and write, put your ideas down. I put my 9 points. I put my 9 points why I thought I had a different view.
Yeah.
I want the country to know he had the magnanimity, he had the humility to reply me. And he told me, Mr. Chweru, I have looked at what you are saying. On this one, you are wrong for the following reason. And I propose this. On this one, 4 areas he dismissed and with the reasons. 4 areas were agreed. We agreed on 4 areas. He told me, on this one, I agree with you. On this one, I agree with you. But this 4, he told me why he had disagreed with the opposition that I did. So the truth is, I want to see, we as ministers, we cannot, of course, just on an ante-hill go and say, Mr. President, we don't agree with the opposition, because that is tantamount to a mutiny. What we can only
Where angels do not dare.
But what we can do is to very politely differ with him. If the platform, if the venue is not conducive, you can go and say, Mr. President, I have some ideas that I thought I could put in black and white for your eyes only, and then if it pleases you, you can get back to me. He does, and to be honest, I want the country to know, for my case, he put it in writing, to reply all the points that raised in writing. Coming to this one, actually the president guides. And when he guides, then he tells that you read in the letter.
Yes.
He says, following our discussion, which means there must have been a discussion on the subject. There must have been a discussion, and that discussion involved weighing so many things apart from what I've told you, apart from the qualification, weighing the question of integrity, because we are very passionate about this airline. We want it to survive. I want the country to want this, and it will survive. It is a collective duty of us first as cabinet, and then the citizens. We must mobilize citizens, and that's why I'm very grateful to Sarah and the Honorable Mapendusi. They say it is nice to fly this.
No, it is nice.
No, it is nice.
No,
that objectivity.
Yes.
Now, what the country wants to know is, are the pilots competent? That I will say 100% yes. Are the engineers who manage these airlines competent? That is correct, 100%. Is this lady qualified, the CEO? I think if qualification is having a basic degree of she's qualified. How is our integrity? I think it is that integrity that sets her apart from the other former general manager, and she may have her papers not as I don't know what word, you know, I wanted to put it in Ateso, but this will this will yes. Yes. You know, the one is the other ones may have had those very impeccable papers, extremely impeccable, but when it comes to integrity, totally opaque. Totally wanting in terms of integrity. So for us now, we say, okay, let's blend a bit of good basic qualification with the good integrity. That's the direction we have taken. That's the direction we have taken.
Honorable Minister, hold it there. We're just going to take a break and then come in with the conversation. But it's just an interesting debate.
Yes.
But I just want to also know from you how you actually feel with all this conversation now.
Yeah.
We all want this airline to survive, want it to be here. We've had opportunities to fly Uganda Airlines. We love it, and we like it, and it should be here. How do you feel now that this conversation is actually there? Now we know we're trying to...
I still have another perspective.
Balance, yes, you're coming on. Yes. We're now balancing the qualifications, visa integrity, and lots of the other things. But yet again, we now also need to examine the confidence levels of the persons that we're talking about. In football, we have what we call philosophies. A manager comes in and you have very talented footballers, but you come with a philosophy. And you say, my philosophy is not conceding goals, or my philosophy is scoring as many goals that I can get to. Because at the end of the day, you want to see that you lift the trophy. That's what you want. You were hired to make sure that your team wins the trophy. What philosophy is this that you have? And I'm only thinking, if you are the manager there and everything is about you, we're looking at the confidence of the players on the pitch. With the manager, who we're trying to balance and say, okay, this manager may not be a very good manager in these, maybe doesn't have the qualifications, but he can actually talk to the players. I'm only thinking where it takes us, but we'll just take a break and return with a conversation and carry on. The Honorable Musa Ichweli is with us in studios. The Honorable Captain Francis Babu with us. Honorable Honorable Polo Mara from Otuke with us, and of course the usual ones, Honorable Mapenduzi Ojara and Sarah Vireta. We'll take a break and return very shortly.
Ni MTN Kabode Super as you pay mpola for this smartphone. Make calls, update your WhatsApp status, watch YouTube, and Google anything under the sun with 2 GB worth of data every month for 7 months. Simply make a small deposit of 99k and pay the balance mpola mpola. You can pay in daily, weekly or even monthly installments while you enjoy your new phone. So what are you doing today? Visit any MTN shop near you and get the MTN Gyagenda Super easy.
Children are a special gift, one we must protect and nurture with care. Ensuring your child has a birth certificate opens doors for them that would otherwise be hard to access, such as immunization, school admission, or simply proving their age and belonging. Let us do our duty as parents and guardians by registering our children and getting them birth certificates. For more information, visit the NERA office closest to you or call the toll-free number 0800-211-700. This message is brought to you by NERA.
I remember the lockdown, when the streets were empty and our lives disrupted, when businesses closed and our livelihoods hung in the balance. Hospitals were full. We lost loved ones, jobs, and hope. Our children couldn't study anymore. We cannot let this happen again. We should not go back. Get fully vaccinated against COVID-19 and join the millions of Ugandans who are already vaccinated.
Enjoy more GBs for the same price on Airtel. Shareable using to Gabane. We have increased GBs across all your favorite packs. Now, 4 GB is at 10,000 shillings and 10.5 GB at 22,500 shillings, all valid for a week. For the heavy data users, enjoy 24 GB at 50,000 shillings and 50 GB at 100,000 shillings, all valid for a month. Dial *175# or use the My Airtel app to buy these and more affordable weekly and monthly data bundles on Airtel, the smartphone network.
Do you need data collection services, data analysis and reporting, monitoring and evaluation systems? Then contact Mood Technologies, a professional research firm that has provided many organizations with timely research solutions for over 15 years. For more information, visit www.nt.co.ug or call us on 0704 913 399 or 0782 602 963. Visit our office in Kampala at Sayuni Complex in Tinda. Mood Technologies, your professional research firm.
Cooking with electricity is now affordable. Cook your beans. Avoid smoke.
Sayaka. Cooking with electricity is now so affordable with the Fumba tariff set by the Electricity Regulatory Authority. With the Fumba tariff, you can now buy up to 70 units of Yaka at a reduced price of 412 Uganda shillings per unit after consuming your first 80 units of the month. For more information, contact the Electricity Regulatory Authority on 0200 506 000.
Happiness comes to us in many places. It's in knowing the mosquito net keeps our children healthy. The wife having the support of her husband. It's in deciding together when to have a baby. And for some, focusing on what's important right now. So what's your happiness? Make the right health decisions to ensure happiness for you and your family.
Meet Professor Petero. He knows something every hustler in UG is gonna love.
Oh, see. You see, I was just trying to get the documents to register for Airtel Money.
You don't need the documents. You just self register.
What's going on here?
He sells things from the shop, and behind my back, he gets the money and gives it to his girlfriends.
But just get Airtel Money Pay so that all money comes direct to your business wallet, and only you, the owner, have access to it. Just dial *185 *10 # and now you are on. No waiting. Huh? This insanity is sweet. Give them also.
I only take Airtel Money Pay. It's easy and secure.
Yes, become a safer and more efficient cash-free business today. Easy. Not mixing your business money with your Kameza money. No, that's efficient. Airtel Money. Instant, secure, borderless.
Well, thank you so much and welcome back from the break. My name is Gyagenda Ssemakula. Ziksoka, it is behind the headlines, sitting in for Charles Odongtho, and of course carrying on with the conversation. Just a glance into the aviation industry, and of course with an in-depth analysis of our own national carrier, the Uganda Airlines. Let me turn now to Captain Babu. Give us another angle. You've heard the minister say what he's saying, and of course all of us on the airline by and large. Let's hear from you now.
Thank you very much. First and foremost, let me say this. Uganda needs an airline. It is a strategic industry. Secondly, Uganda has got a very good position on the African continent. We are halfway between Cairo and Cape Town. We are on the east coast and we can go to the far east. So when you are in business, the first thing you look for is this place good for my business? And Uganda is good for an airline business. That's point number one. Point number two, we are a landlocked country. And therefore, it is not wise not to have an airline, which would be another area for our transportation, in case if we have problems. And for security purposes, we need an airline. So Uganda needs an airline, no matter what you say.
We have it now.
Now, where is our problem? Our problem, and it did not start now, it is started when the colonialists were here. They started a good university, they taught us to be clerks, they brought a medical school. They refused to give us technical teaching, and one of the things they completely did not give us was aviation. And the only time aviation came on board was when we got the East African community those days, and the perspective came to the people who had gone into the community. A man called Balidawa, if you remember him, he started the Directorate of Civil Aviation. They started an East African aviation scheme to help Africans to enter into that industry in Kenya. Started with the ground people, went into air traffic control, eventually went into piloting and then management. In fact, Balidawa himself was given a job of being a director after being trained as a pilot, as an air traffic controller, as a manager, as a navigator, and they made him the Director General of Civil Aviation. Now you can see the kind of training he underwent. I'm happy that all of you are talking about Ethiopian Airlines. But let me give you also another airline, which is East African Airways, which we had here. The other one would be Singapore Airlines, which I will use as examples to demonstrate. Ethiopian Airline was started by Emperor Haile Selassie with the Americans, who he asked to give them experts, and they came from Trans World Airline, TWA. Came to Ethiopia, a group of about 10 people, started a nucleus airline and set the whole thing going, and they made a startup for Ethiopian Airlines. So the first pilots of Ethiopian Airlines was a man called Almayo, who I met, and he gave me this background. They started a school for the airline to train pilots, to train engineers, to train ground staff, to train management staff. They used the American system where you start from the bottom
and climb
up. They then trained you on the job. East African Airways was started by BOC, British Overseas. And they started East African Airways, South African Airways, West African Airways. Again, they brought the experts to start these airlines.
Did it something?
Uganda is one of those countries which had everything. Uganda was the hub of East Africa until 1970, when Amin came, then the hub moved to Nairobi. But Entebbe is a particular area which is very good for aviation to take off and land. It's 4,000, it's about 3,000, about 3,800 feet. Kenya is a little bit more, it's about 5,000 feet. Addis Ababa is 7,200 feet. Therefore, not very good for aviation. Entebbe was. And it was being used. Now, that said and done, and giving you a picture of how an airline starts. Uganda Airline is in a startup mode in business. When you are starting up a new business, you are in a startup mode. You are not an airline. You are just starting. And that starting does not require boards, does not require favoritism, does not require politics. It requires experts, about 10, like what Emirates did. Emirates went to Europe, got some Irishmen and a few guys who came and started Emirates without a board, without anything, got the airline going, got the routes to go down, and then started hiring local people who they now trained, regardless of their qualifications. Because aviation in most of these countries has never been taught. It is something that we got much, much later. And therefore, when the task force was being formed by a Minister of Works, they invited some of us. And I went there. And I told them, please, don't hire a board. Don't start recruiting people. Get experts, within or without. Go and bring them. Give it 10 people. Let them start the airline. Let them tell you which areas you should start with. Luckily for us, we had very good pilots already trained. They were working in different countries. They were brought back and they were taken to these places where we were buying these aeroplanes. Second point, I told them, don't buy an aeroplane. Why? Because you don't tie all your money into assets when you're starting. It's ridiculous for an airline where you're buying an aeroplane for between $250 to $300 million. Those are the Airbuses, the two of the ones you have. The small ones are between 40 and 60 million. Don't tie your money down. Lease these aeroplanes. Start your routes. Sell your brand. Compete. When you have got a reasonable competition after about 3 to 4 years and you see things are moving, then go in. Don't buy aeroplanes again. Go for lease purchase, which Singapore Airlines and all these airlines are doing, because for them every 5 years they get a new aeroplane. They don't repair aeroplanes. On lease purchase, like when you know what they do in America? You lease a car, you drive it for 3 years, you take it back, they give you a new one, you continue your lease. Same thing. Now, the initial lease would be, you have two options. Either you wet lease, it comes with the pilots and engineer and everything, or you dry lease, which means you have your engineers and your pilots, but they are trained by that leasing company. Now, a country like ours, we cannot tie down $1 billion in aeroplanes alone.
Captain, but we have them now, so what do we do?
No, I'm coming, I'm coming. You have them and you have a big debt, and now you have a deficit. I've just seen it, the balance sheet. We will talk about the balance sheet. Let me continue. That is what we should have started with. So right from the beginning, we were on the wrong note. So this appointing the board, appointing this, that was also not the right thing to do. That is why the other board, when some people were fired by the management then, they started working against the board and the management, and that management was fired, and that group which was working against those moved into this new board now, and they now think that they're there. They can also be worked against, and they'll also be fired. So it's a game which we have in all our parastatals in this country. People are infighting. There's a lot of infighting because they want jobs. And it's not only the airline, by the way. Look at the other parastatals, you find the same thing going on. That said and done, we want, here, the minister has said correctly, we have already done it. What do we do now? Very good point. Since we have already done it, now we need to find out if this board, appointing boards and these people is correct. No. Let's get experts. Even if it means getting them from another country. Let them come, set up that airline. And after setting it up, train anybody you like, I don't care who. And by the way, like he said, I'm not after anybody. They can train anybody in that airline. And I'll give you an example. I was a member of the board of Civil Aviation Authority when we started. And when we started, we were to appoint people. And I insisted they should bring all of them to be interviewed. People sent a few notes here and they said, no, they will be interviewed in this board. And we did interview them. We had people with PhDs, with what? That is not what we were looking for. We were looking for somebody with integrity and experience. And we got one. He had 1 degree, a BCom, but he had worked at every level of management. Are you with me? And this was a man you could train to be a manager. So it's not the degrees we're after. We're after that experience and that integrity. I agree entirely with everybody on this issue. We got him, but you know what we did? We asked ICAO to give us experts who came and worked for him, with him for 2 years. They actually trained him in aviation. After 2 years, the man became an expert. So we need to train whoever you put there. It doesn't matter how handsome, how beautiful, no. We are looking for somebody who can be trained and who is willing to be trained.
You could also say it doesn't matter how ugly.
No. Now, I also agree that what has happened, this is a very sensitive industry. Whenever you have this one, it will affect the airline. Yeah. It's unfortunate. But don't deceive yourself. When you do the wrong thing, the intelligence, the aviation intelligence already knows what goes on in that airline.
Yes.
So when you send these people to London, or you send them to Guangzhou, they will despise them.
Thank you very much. I think
let me finish this one because it's very, very important. That the people you choose must be accepted by others in the industry. Right now, we have another problem in London. You might even take a long time to get permission to go there.
Exactly, coming to that same one.
Yeah, I was going to come to that. We have a civil aviation problem. We must be at a certain standard and we must be audited as Entebbe. And we must be audited to supervise Uganda Airline. Are you with me? So we don't have enough supervisors. Now, all these things are known. Now, what I would like us to say, and I'm begging, yes, we have already tied all our money into that one, and you were talking about the deficit and whatnot. Remember, they bought these aeroplanes. The question is, are they putting some of this money on the airline to pay some of the debts they owe? That's number one. Number two, when the airlines were stuck during COVID, they incurred a lot of costs. Are they letting the airline continue with those costs, or are they going to intervene? Those American airlines you see and whatnot, the government has intervened during COVID. They gave them money. My proposal, Mr. Minister, this is what I'm saying, the money which was tied into the aeroplanes should become part of the capital, and the airline should not be the one to pay for it. Because the airline will never be able to pay that debt. But they should make it a capital. That should be the capital of the airline. And the government should look for sources of money to be able to pay the debts. And during COVID, because when those airplanes were sitting down, they incurred costs. Huge costs. Whenever an airplane is stuck on the ground, you are paying.
It's more expensive to maintain.
I'll give you an example. You know, the maintenance of those airplanes goes by hours. Not whether you've been flying or not. Once 100 hours over a certain item, it must be changed. So when they sit down, you are paying both for maintenance, direct cost, you're also paying for parking them, and you are paying even the pilots who are supposed to fly. So you are paying. Now, that money which was incurred during COVID, there should be a government intervention. And this deficit you are talking about would also be reduced. Lastly, and I pray to God that this happens, let us get these experts. I don't care where you get them from. Today, I had the other former CEO in the committee, and he was narrating why they went after them, and even the report how they are being sabotaged. If this is true, then we need to sit down and change our mindset on how to run companies.
Thank you so much. And you see, you just brought in something that I want to talk about here. First of all, Uganda's Civil Aviation Authority also falls short of certain standards that need to be audited. Because, you know, it's one good thing to say, we'll go to London. It may take us forever to go to London because we just don't go to London if EASA, for example, they have their own also. We have ICAO, that is for all of us. But EASA has their own standards to actually say, are you credible enough to come? And this conversation is actually getting there. Now, aviation intelligence is into our system to actually know whether we are there. We can never, at least not in the near future, that we can break into the Federal Aviation Administration, the FAA of the United States. These are things, it's one thing to tell the people we have a vessel that can actually go for these long hauls. But you see, it's not just one thing to say, we want to come to Heathrow and come. Unless EASA says yes, because even CAA itself has also issues of supervising Uganda Airlines. And I think this is where we are. The Honorable Musa Ichweru.
Well, before you ask Musa Ichweru, there's one thing I want to tell you.
Maybe when it is hot.
When this man, when the management goes to Guangzhou, or they go to London, with this thing that has been going on, they will just snap them.
Can I help you, Captain, to appreciate that? The truth is, we are not just speculating. I want Ugandans to know that conversations and a lot of discussions are going on to the extent that we are actually in our final stages. What you have correctly observed is that there is a need for Civil Aviation Authority to clean its house. That is what the delay was. But I can tell you the signals are already very positive both in UK and in Guangzhou. All the areas that they asked us to get organized on, I can tell the country we have been able to fix them. So that should not be a worry. That should not be a worry. I think we are almost good to go. We are almost good to go. As to whether we have compromised this one now, Captain Babu, the planes are here and more should be coming. The other one is the board is here, and what we have decided to do now, particularly as Ministers responsible for support supervision, is to say, I think we had adopted is it eyes on, hands off approach. There is a need for us to really close the ranks now and do real support supervision, both of the board and the management, because we are shareholders, Minister of Finance and Minister of Work. We used to think that, okay, we can just depend on the reports. The good news is, Captain Babu, we have also, I can also let you know that we have Ugandans of the caliber of Babu who have been in this industry for long, and they don't want it to collapse. So much as they are not really in the mainstream, they have decided to volunteer their services to advise both us, the policymakers, and they are doing that. They tell us, you know, objectively speaking, this is what should be done. This is what, and these are Ugandans who are offering their services as Ugandans, and that's the beauty about the commitment that Ugandans have in making sure that this thing doesn't. It will never. I want to assure you, Captain and honorable colleagues, this will never collapse. Now, talking about Parliament, I want to say this. Parliament is doing a good job. I have had the privilege of being in the Parliament for a while. This particular Parliament, 11th Parliament, is excelling in many ways.
Thank you.
I am saying this without any fear of contradiction. Before, in the other former parliaments, I can tell you there were things that I would not want to associate with so much, and yet I was part of it. You would find a committee responsible for oversight would hold a particular department at ransom and demand a lot of things. But from the time of the late Olanya, may he so rest in peace, we started talking about some of those things openly. And now, Right Honorable Anita Mong and my brother Taibwa have openly told this new parliament that anybody found to be demanding ransoms from people they're investigating or from groups that they will be punished according to the laws that govern our parliament. They may not have completely abandoned. But I can tell you there is tremendous improvement. There is tremendous improvement. So I
want to hear more about that.
There's tremendous improvement. I can say this. Let me tell you, Honorable Jara. Just again, one example. I've been an old man, you know.
You are an old man, yes.
In this area. There were cases, for example, where you would find a committee of presidential affairs would go and investigate something what the Ministry of Prime Minister's office that is handling, that is under president, has done in Moroto. Then they come back with the cracked houses and say, you know, UPS, we are going to bring in the report, we are going to really make you know, so can you do something? And the permanent secretaries of that time would be forced to pay money to members of committees. So I can say I sit in the 11th committee. I'm saying this on television.
To buy their way out.
The permanent secretaries, the civil servant, the vote controllers would pay committees of parliament, their chairpersons and members, so that the report does not implicate them. And that I can
at the expense of Ugandans.
Well, precisely. So I am telling you, I sit now in the 11th parliament with a little bit of, you know, that's why when I sit, you see me relaxed. Because the future is bright. You know, because now when I appear before my committee of infrastructure, I can disagree with them and still go back to my office and they will produce their report which is objective.
Yes.
So I wanted to believe that what is going on is good. But then our appeal as a department, as a ministry, is it possible? Is it possible, for example, when the committee is interrogating me on matters that may have ramifications globally, is it possible for us to have it in-house without cameras, so that when we are done with that, then we can again invite the media? Because each journalist has a way of expressing what they think is going on. You know,
we are dealing with opaqueness in Kenyan elections. Why do you want opaqueness?
No, I'm not saying in everything, but there are things, for example, if we are discussing about how is your airline, how is this, because now by the time my young journalist from Amuria FM comes out, he does not appreciate probably in depth what is going on. He will go and say, now they say the pilots, they are incompetent.
You wish this shouldn't have come out.
Yeah, the pilots are incompetent, and he flashes it in the social media, and the people reading there out there will believe this Amuria FM person. You understand? So to me, I am saying, when we are discussing some of these things that touch into the integrity of this very critical sector, I think there are some things that we will first discuss in house. Then when we now conclude is when we can now say these are things we cannot hide from the public. That would be my humble appeal.
Thank you.
But I don't have power over that.
Thank you.
But Gyagenda, the people being interviewed all should not be arrogant.
I know.
There are people who go to these committees and they want to be arrogant to these chairmen. These people have got powers.
Yes.
But the committee has the powers of the High Court.
Yes.
They can easily, you know, why do you refuse to go to a committee when you're invited? And then you give an excuse and even write a letter. A minister has written a letter here that they will not go to that committee until September. That means they are despising the committee.
Actually, that amounts to contempt of power.
Contempt of power.
Let's go to the second point.
Yeah.
There are rumors that they have warned the chairman of this committee.
Yes, threatening him.
And it is in social media. I don't like to go with the social media. I hope it is not right.
It is not right.
Now, secondly, let me finish this one.
There's a police case by a minister.
I don't want somebody to go and say that the committee is the one who should look for your credentials. I go and get my own credentials. And today, I've just read here that the Vice Chancellor has said the person came here and collected her credentials. They should not say we lost her credentials. It's on social media. Number two, there's nothing wrong. We now confirm that the lady has actually got her degrees. There's nothing wrong with that. But what we don't want, Don't be arrogant to Uganda.
Okay, let's just get a few comments here from the public. Honorable Mara should have actually come in to tell us something about the figures, because we're very interested in that also. We need to know how long should we put into this thing, and what times we give ourselves, because you know, when we give the figures of about 500 billion,
498 billion.
Yes, we need to know how much should we keep losing for us to be able to benefit.
Investing, not losing, investing.
Oh, okay. Well, investing and getting losses, whatever. But we need to know.
But I made it very clear. I made it very clear to you that
7
investment
years.
should be part of the capital, not for the airline to pay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Once you do that, then the airline will never take off.
Somebody here, Musungu James from Mana Farm, says, is it prudent? Is it prudent to flout the recruitment process to end up picking somebody whose academic background is doubted? CEOs are analytical, foresighted, and risk takers in nature. These are skills that are required, you know. There's that also. There's somebody called Evelyn here, Naluswa. The question from Evelyn Naluswa says, it goes to Captain Babu. Why is there no aviation scholarships in Uganda, or aviation camps, just like it is in other countries? Now, this is to you, scholarships. Grant Impirirwe says, please give the management time. You can't invest and expect profits in 1 or 2 years. Probably the 5th year will be good for them maybe to make it. Peter from Serere says the current board is equally incompetent. They did not advise the president on the recruitment policy of the organization. Peter in Serere. Evelyn in Entebbe says, Uganda Airlines has impacted us very well. We, the traders, are appreciative. Look at social and tourism impacts on a bigger picture. It has improved our lives. She's in Entebbe, benefiting from that. Kagume Edward in Chisasi says, we are both failing with the CVs and integrity. Appointment in the aviation industry is best on the know-how. This entirely starts with appointments board. Kagume in Chisasi. Olua in Lira City says, it is my thinking that government didn't learn any lessons on why the Uganda Airlines collapsed because of micromanagement. History might repeat itself. Here's worry. Yes. Okay, those are they, and I think we'll hold them there and see. Honorable, come into the conversation and help us here. Somebody says it should be about 5 years. We are demanding too early. But of course, 5 to 7 years, we're demanding too early. But the conversations from all the things, are we good students of our own history to start with? Sarah here talked about opaqueness in Kenya, and you know, we ask whether Kenyans are also learning from their own experiences. We're asking these questions. Coming back to us.
The observer there. And I called her. She told me things are going on very well.
They were opaque. She wasn't sure how the opaqueness was.
The doctor had not met the politician yet.
Yes.
It's the politician who have become opaque.
But yes, what needs to be done, Honorable?
First, I've given you numbers that 3 years in a row, Uganda Airlines have been making losses. 102 billion in the first year, 164 billion in the third year, and much more, 232 in the third year. Hopefully, with the assurances that the minister has provided, that if they don't get profitable routes, because that is a very key thing for the airlines, and that's why the minister is saying we are the Guangzhou route, we need to secure it. You have the Nairobi, we are thinking about London, we have Dar es Salaam, right?
Yeah, we do.
South Africa
also.
Yeah.
South Africa. So
Kilimanjaro. But Mogadishu, when we get a big carrier,
yes,
will be making
So they really need to quickly get profitable routes so that these airlines can actually fly. I was not very long ago returning from abroad, and I found 3 aircrafts parked. So aircrafts don't make money when they're on the ground. So we really need to find out, the minister is here, will explain why are aircraft on the ground? If we have the pilots, we have management in place, you have the board, what's the problem? They should be in the skies flying. So for them to turn around these losses which we are seeing, they have to quickly get profitable routes and then turn around the losses. And I think it will take time. I don't think they can do it within 5 years. Because if you see the losses are going with time, and that is understandable on the backdrop of the COVID situation, which we have been in. And with the aircrafts on the ground, you must continue to pay, given the expert advice that our senior has provided. Secondly, we have to manage the cost. Cost management becomes a key component, because even in the auditor's report, there is an element of extravagance. Now, you can't begin to really increase your cost structure if you're not making money. You must cut your jacket according to your size. So I am glad the minister has said they will not only now, like eyes in, fingers out, they must now take eyes in and also some nails, some few nails inside there to see how they are cooking this thing. And the Auditor General has provided us some information to that effect. Cut down your cost structure. Don't be extravagant because you know the government is the one funding it. As a CEO, by the way, I hope the board, you have given the board a target to achieve as shareholder. As a shareholder, we are saying, board, you need to perform. We need to give them a financial projection of how they need to turn around the airline around within a shorter period of time. And the CEO who is appointed must have a target. You can't just sit there and that's what we do in the corporate world. I worked in the corporate world for 24 years as a banker. And as an executive, you're given a target. If you don't meet it, then somebody else will come and do your job. So we should not think this is a government parastatal. I should say here that yesterday, as a committee of finance, we had met the minister and the representative from Uganda Revenue Authority. Uganda Revenue Authority, in this the first quarter of this year, they have collected beyond
their expectation.
The target set by the Minister of Finance. That's the kind of thing we want to hear from government parastatals. That when you're given that responsibility, you need to do it. And the second one also is the level of staffing, the skill sets that we need. About our staff, do we really have those skill sets? Because even the CEO, when he was being interviewed, was saying, I still have issues. One of the issues raised in the auditor's report is the structure of the organization.
Yes.
Those are basic
the
things.
Organogram.
The organogram. Who is supposed to do what where? So that at least you know that if you have targets set, you must, in the manner in which the organization is set, you should be able to deploy resources to say, you'll take responsibility for that. The salespeople will be so-and-so. So-and-so will be in Guangzhou. You need to have the organogram, and the people that will be responsible to deliver on the promise. And also, I think the final one for me is the infrastructure. The infrastructure that we have. In terms of to deliver the customer experience at the airport. It is very, very key. How do we handle luggage? The baggage claims, which is a key component of flights at Entebbe.
And communication.
Exactly. How do we communicate?
When I lost my luggage,
yes,
the communication was very shabby.
And technology, now the world is moving towards the technology. How are we prepared in terms of technology? And you know, Entebbe has always had scandals. Even with the construction work that was going on there, there were issues about money borrowed, and we were now supposed to expand the terminal. We had issues there.
Even management.
Yes. Do we have the infrastructure that will be able to support the airline? Because the Honorable Minister said, now we have 6 and many more are coming. Will they have where we're going to park them, where we're going to service them? Those kind of things must be thought through in a very coherent manner so that we can turn around this aircraft. And it has our goodwill. And maybe the last one is, with the assurance from the minister, may I have flown the Uganda Airlines several times. It's a beautiful airline. It's new. And they serve you, even we have these Rolex on board, and they are trying to do their best.
They also haven't sent any.
There is very good customer care.
Was one of.
One of, yes. So they have good customer care. The question now is, for us to patronize it, Ugandans must have confidence that this airline is safe. And that the goodwill is available.
And is in the right hands.
And if we, instead of investing in Kenya Airways, I know that we we are bad-mouthing it. No, we are that sense of patriotism that we rather, if you are going to Nairobi, why not fly Uganda Airlines? So if all of us were to put our money there, then this airline can easily be turned around.
It will.
Yeah.
Thank you, my brother Ssemakula. Just to emphasize, one, and to be very objective and realistic. Looking at the time the airlines came back to operation, I don't think it would be fair to begin drawing comparison looking at Kenya Airways, Ethiopian, Airways, and Rwanda Air, and so on, because this is a company that collapsed and came back in 2019.
Yeah.
So it's like restarting, just like Honorable Captain Babu put it. Because when you look at Kenya Airways, it was founded in 1977. And then you look at Ethiopian Airways in 1945. And then you look at Rwanda Air in 2000, and I think around 2002, December 22. And so, but again, when you look at Kenya Airways and Ethiopian Airways and all these others, they are making losses to this day. But when you try to examine critically, you then see a brighter future for them. Because from the losses they made, from the experiences, they try to project the future and try to correct a lot of the things so they can manage the competitive environment. The question is, what are we doing as a country so we can learn from our past, so we don't get back to the pit again, but we also begin to prepare to compete with the guys who have been in the marketplace for a much longer time. That is key. Number two, the question of how we play around with our own rules. And I think that is where we have this problem coming. Because the discussion for the last 1 week or so has been about how the CEO got recruited. And I think what is important, just like Honorable Omara put it, I think the people who advise the president need to play their part, but the people who are mandated to work on behalf of the president also need to do their part. Because it's not wrong for the president to say, look, I think this individual can do a good job.
Yeah.
It's not a bad idea. The president can do that. But it's now the responsibility of those charged with the duty of making sure that the processes are followed. And so that has to be, and that should be taken in good faith. Now, the other thing which is important, and I want to draw from our own experiences, the example. In the committee I chair, public accounts and local government, we have been to different districts around the country. And you begin having a problem when the people you invite to interact with turn very arrogant, very uncooperative, and that is where problem always comes. I want to give an example. One time we went to Arua, where the principal human resource officer who was supposed to come, and we were looking at payroll management. This is a gentleman who decided to put off his phone. And when we asked the accounting officer said, it's a common practice with him. When there are such issues, you'll never find him.
He goes away.
And we said, okay, what do we do with such a person? We said, we are not leaving Arua until when this guy appears. So the RDC and the CAO and the DISO went and they sent ready announcement. Now telling the people of Arua to make sure whoever, sees this man to
bring him there to
report. And we spent 2 days in Arua trying to make sure we do a good job and help the local government, but also do the work of parliament. We have had so many people who...
When he came?
Yes, he came. He came the next day.
After 2 days?
He came the following day after hearing the announcement. He came and, the story, I'll not bring more about it. Again, we had to give an opportunity. They said, look, you are not prepared, and this committee is not a torture chamber. We are interested in getting out the facts and the figures, and we are doing justice to this country. So we gave time, and I think it's important that people need to understand what Parliament tries to do, because then sometimes you hear other people thinking that Parliament is trying to frustrate. It's not about frustrating.
No.
I think that's where some people go wrong. because they turn arrogant, they begin to frame parliament. Sometimes people begin to blackmail parliament. So that we are painted in that way, and then, but in most cases that is done by people who are not straight, people who are trying to hide something. The other thing which is key, as I conclude, is the question of how do we deal with the challenges that we have. And the Honorable Minister put it very, very correctly. How we handle situations determine a lot about the future. And so, just like many people are concerned, whatever is going on is likely to have a very far-reaching impact.
And it is
on the company. Exactly.
It's actually doing it.
It's so it's also about how do we manage that. It's not about concealing. It's not about denying the public information.
But I was actually coming to ask you that. Would you rather that the media doesn't come when you're interrogating these people so? Because that's what...
At some elements, not all, not
all.
everything. There are some areas where we sometimes have had meetings, Honorable Mapenu. We say, where we have reached now, can we first do it in-house? Media, can you step a bit, have a Coca-Cola outside as we just organize ourselves? Then we agree on a few things. So by the time the media comes, we are on the same page. Okay. And we inform the country. We don't hide anything, but we'll have agreed. Because sometimes to follow the processes, even where they are not clarity.
Just to conclude, what Honorable Minister is putting is correct. But I think the problem comes when you have witnesses who are hostile from the start. Because when you invite people, and before you even start, you know, Parliament as an institution is not an island.
No.
Whatever we do is for the good of the country. So even when we invite you, we look at you as a stakeholder, as a key partner. And so it does no harm for Honorable Musa Ichwero, who is invited, to say, look, honorable members, yes, we are willing to provide whatever information, but for the sake of this, we request a bit. And Parliament will always consider. So it's about the perception that some people have. And I don't think Parliament would have any motive for frustrating such an important, you know.
Dr. Birete.
Yeah, I would start on that aspect of transparency. You know, this airline belongs to Ugandans. Whatever happens there is of interest to the citizens. So, yes, the inquiry might portray the airline in bad image, but why don't the people in charge of the airline do what is expected of them? Instead of complaining about Parliament. Let's look at the simple example. I don't know who made the human resource manual for the airline. To say for this job, these are requirements, minimum requirements, so not maximum. This job, these are the requirements. And then you decided to do the contrary. Do you have a minute where you decided to differ from your own policies? Because this is a governance issue. Did you discuss it and endorse it, and there's a minute you can avail to Parliament to say, here we waived these policy requirements of ours? I think we should not have any proceedings of Parliament in camera.
They should be in the open.
Yes.
For people to know.
The people in charge of things they are managing on behalf of Ugandans should know that they have a duty to do the right thing. And they should not say the media is portraying us, the Parliament is portraying us. They are the ones who put themselves in the bad place in the first time.
Wow. It's terrible for them.
there is sorry for again coming in. There is one important thing Honorable Musa Ichwero brought, and it actually gives me a lot of hope. Talking about how the 11th Parliament is conducting business, and you know, sometimes it's not members of Parliament as such who begin to demand for bribes and so on. I'll give you my example. One time we were handling an entity, one of the districts, and to be specific, Kitgum district, all right? And one of the people invited ended up going to my maternal aunt. From nowhere, all right? Going to her and said, look, we have been invited to Parliament, we know your son is the chair and all that. We had a lot of, you know,
Talk to your
pleading
son.
and all that. And so, from nowhere, I received a call from my aunt saying, you know, my son, there is this stranger who came home. I have never known him. And this is what is going on. He explained this, what is going in Parliament. This guy has pressure. And so I said, okay, if he came, thank you for telling me. We are doing our job. And so I kept quiet. And the gentleman came. So we handled them. We did everything. And when we finished, and I said, look, members, I want to bring this before you. Yesterday I received a call, and I did not want to bring it before because it would affect the environment.
The conversation.
Right? So I brought it at the end of our interaction with them, and I said, look, this is a gentleman who went and did this. So I want to know from the team from Kidgum, can you tell me who among you is this gentleman? He said, I am here. I said, why do you have to go? And that amounts to actually compromising, because psychologically you want to affect me. Now I know you even know my relatives. You can go up to home. So these are the kind of things that members of parliament go through. And I think members of parliament should be left to do their job.
Okay.
Now, can we give you information on this one? Anything to do with the security all over the world, all parliaments never allow press in there. Even in some high courts, when they are doing something about security, they never allow media. Those are standard. But these other things they're talking about, these are not security issues.
Yeah.
Let us not be deceived.
So with these, we need to come in.
These are governance issues.
It's not security.
Yeah, no.
It's not security.
It's not security.
No, and something else.
Threats and, you know.
I want to say one more.
Security.
Yeah, I know you were about to go.
So because you're about to go.
One thing I want to talk about.
Out of here.
You're talking about good routes and whatnot. Good routes are created by a marketing department of an organization.
Yeah.
You will not get a good route unless if you have got good marketing and you can show people that you are doing a good job. That's a very important thing. So routes are attached. The most important two things in an airline is marketing and finance.
Okay.
Now, marketing, you must have the most competent. In fact, you don't bring half-baked people in marketing. That's number one. Number two, this thing, we should not gloss over this airline. Oh, we are going to bring cargo. No. We don't have enough cargo to even get an aeroplane. What we are doing here, the cargo which is being taken, aeroplanes come from South Africa and they go 2 times a week. They go to Europe, they take flowers. So you get a cargo aeroplane for what?
To take flowers?
Yeah, that's all they do. Flowers and some vegetables. So which cargo are we talking about? We want a big aeroplane. Go and buy it. You can get Njawulo on it. No.
Okay.
I am saying, don't buy aeroplanes now. Don't start cargo. If you've got cargo, you can work with a group that can do your cargo and you get money on it without investing in an aeroplane. That's a very important thing. And lastly, the breaking even, I will repeat. For Uganda Airline, at the speed we are going, it's not even 5 years, it's not even 7 years, it's 10 years.
You've pushed it to 10 years?
Yes.
From what you see?
Yeah. And competition we have in this part of the world is going to require a fantastic chief executive officer, a marketing.
Do we have those ones?
Sorry?
Do we have those ones?
No.
We don't have them.
What we have, we need to train them.
Okay.
I'm not saying we don't have people who cannot be trained. Okay. We have a lot of them.
Those who are there now are not up to where you think they should be.
Well, the board will soon be somebody else who pushed the other board to be sacked. Is now working on this one to be sacked.
Thank you. Honorable Mara,
yes.
Finally.
Yes. No, I think the Uganda Airlines revival gives us an opportunity to build the nation's brand and take our rightful place in the aviation industry.
Yes.
What is important is for us to do it right.
Correct.
And to have a proper management team in place. And I would want to emphasize again, if we want Uganda to progress and move anywhere else, let's allow systems to work.
Okay.
Correct.
Let's allow the boards to function. A moment you appoint somebody and just give it to the board. And these people are rather boisterous. They are gods unto themselves. And they will not listen to the board. They will not even listen to a minister. You can't do anything to me. If we allow the system to work and the process to work, then, I mean, people will work and deliver.
Honorable Jara, final and very finally.
We, just as my colleague has put it, I think the question is not about how the company is faring now. The question should be, how prepared are we as a country so in future we don't have a repeat of what happened.
Okay.
And I think we need to streamline a lot of things. We need to respect the rules. We need to build systems. We need to make sure whatever standard that we have in this industry is met.
Okay.
And so how we do it demonstrate a lot our commitment.
Okay.
And I think that is a message that the president and all those involved, the minister, we need to stick to the rule of the game.
Okay.
So we can build that confidence. But I don't think we should also do things in fear. The Honorable Captain Babu said we should not do this and we should not do this. And I think now that we have got people like him, we shouldn't fear getting into some of those that are difficult.
Because they're here. I hope us get out of those. Thank you very
because
much.
we have you, and so we have to do the difficult.
Yes.
And people like you should come into support.
Yeah.
I think that, but the future looks bright. The fact that we are able to discuss this, and I think the discussion should be taken in good faith. Even what is taking place in Parliament should be taken in good faith. And the recommendations of Parliament should be taken seriously.
Okay.
And, you know, it helps.
Dr. Bidet.
Yeah.
I will speak about, just briefly, the quality of, or attributes of a good airline. One is tangibleness, assurance, responsiveness, image, and technical expertise. So I think we should not beat about
Look
the
at all
bush.
those, the parameters.
Yeah, we are not inventing anything in the airline. Let's benchmark, put down our values, make our systems work, and do what is expected of us as a country.
Okay. Finally, the Honorable Minister, in Uganda, we have a saying. You refuse to say yours in Itaso. I will say mine in Uganda. We normally say, "Entamu eulira gusoka." You know, when you put a saucepan on fire, and after so many hours, there is nothing even, you know, you don't feel any heat in it, then you start doubting whether the saucepan will actually give you food. Finally,
the legacy that General Katumba and I and the team in the Ministry of Works and Transport want to leave behind is a legacy of a growing airline. And we are determined to mobilize our friends and all citizens of Uganda to walk that direction. We will do whatever it takes on behalf of the citizens of this country to protect these very critical assets of the country. We will do that. We will continue to correct where we might see errors, but we will continue also. I think our biggest weakness in the ministry is keeping some of our successes to ourselves. We have agreed that we must now continue to articulate clearly to Ugandans what we have done, not just in the airline, Uganda Airline, but in all the areas of Ministry of Transport and Works. So I commit myself before you and to this country that for as long as we still have this mandate, we'll do our best. We will correct what may be wrong, but we will also emphasize and make sure that we stick to the rules, as my sister says, and we have always done that. But certainly the teaching, I think we are in some turbulence, but we are clearing. We are soon going to release our belts and ask people to take their tea.
Okay. Thank you very much. Just like Dr. Sarah Bideta said, this is Uganda's national airline. The people working in there should not think it's their own thing. Whoever is charged there shouldn't think they're possibly running their private companies or family businesses or etc. It belongs to all of us. All of us as Ugandans may not have the opportunity or the leeway to belong to Uganda Airlines, but I think when we have opportunities like this to say something, one or two talk about it, we are not just castigating the airline. We all want a vibrant airline like the standards here are. And I think it would be very good and prudent for all of us if we fly Uganda Airlines and we're sure that everything in there is actually well. Somebody sent a question to say he thinks because he doubts the competences of the CEO, then he doubts the competences of the engineers and maybe the pilots. No. The pilots are okay. The pilots are okay. They're international standards. Pilots are okay.
They've been trained abroad, actually.
Flight operators are okay. For some of us who have flown Uganda Airlines, we know. So they're just issues that we need to fix. And take this in good faith, that when we say we want a vibrant national airline, that's what we mean, and that's what we want for all of us. I want to thank
No, I want to tell the minister not to snub Parliament.
No, the minister
Parliament will be...
The minister,
Don't
he
snub
actually
Parliament.
trusts, he actually trusts in Parliament.
I trust a lot
He trusts in Parliament, and this time round, he knows why he even trusts in this Parliament more than...
Yes, 11th Parliament.
But thank you so much, Honorable Mr. State Minister for Works. Thank you so much for having allowed to be with us. Captain Francis Babu.
Thank you.
Tunakushukuru sana. Thank you.
Asante sana.
Ndugu Omara from
you.
Otuke, thank you too.
Thank you.
Ndugu Honorable Mapenduzi, and of course Dr. Sarah Birete. Thank you so much. My name is Gyagenda Ssemakula. I was only just trying to fit in the shoes of a milder brother, Charles Odongtho. Wishing you all the best for tonight. God bless you. For God and my country. Shalom.
Amen.
Ni MTN Kabode Super as you pay mpola for this smartphone. Make calls, update your WhatsApp status, watch YouTube, and Google anything under the sun with 2 GB worth of data every month for 7 months. Simply make a small deposit of 99k and pay the balance mpola. You can pay in daily, weekly, or even monthly installments while you enjoy your new phone. So what are you doing today? Visit any MTN shop near you and get the MTN Kabode Super easy.
Oh, Susan, I want to propose to Rose. Yes, and this time I am serious.
Have you guys had sex?
Duh, of course.
And have you had sex without using condoms?
Hey, Nga, you're curious.
I'm more concerned. Are you having sex with other people?
Hey, hello, is this an interview or what?
No, just things you should think about. Do you know Rose's HIV status?
Okay, this is serious. Should I be worried?
It is actually serious. Do you know your HIV status?
I think I am safe. Many times we get into situations that put us at risk of HIV. However, the first step to ending HIV is getting tested and knowing your results.
It's Time Up HIV. Call 0800-211-046 or text 8080 toll-free for more information about how to prevent HIV.
This message is brought to you by Ministry of Health with support from USAID.
Just to put us out of danger, if you will. Now, at the moment, local authorities are reporting that there were several strikes against this supermarket. Right now, it looks like it's completely destroyed. As for the situation around this area, now, there isn't a single military structure here, so it looks like it's obvious that the target was civilian infrastructure. The strike took place at 10 o'clock in the morning. The supermarket was open at 8 o'clock. Now, this place is very popular among local residents. As you can see, the building is still ablaze as firefighters are trying to put it out. They told us to be careful because the roof can collapse at any time. Employees of the supermarket are now trying to salvage as much of merchandise as possible. At the moment, they can't even speak to us. They can't even give us the account because there's still quite a lot to be done. Roman Kosarev, RT, Donetsk People's Republic.
The humanitarian disaster unfolding in Ethiopia is worse than in Ukraine. That's the warning from the head of the World Health Organization, who's criticized the lack of funds flowing into the country compared to what Kiev is receiving.
I can tell you that the humanitarian crisis in Tigray is more than Ukraine, without any exaggeration. And I said it many months ago, maybe the reason is the color of the skin of the people in Tigray. I haven't heard in the last few months, several months now, even a head of state talking about the Tigray condition anywhere, in the developed world especially.
Tigray is just one example of a global humanitarian crisis. We are hearing from UN agencies as well as private groups that for this year alone, they need just under $50 billion to be able to provide for the more than 200 million vulnerable people. Now, many of these people are in the Middle East and are in Africa. And whereas the money that has been sent to Ukraine has been forthcoming, what we are witnessing is an alarming shortfall of money and aid reaching the Middle East and Africa. So, of course, the question needs to be asked, why the discrepancy? And this is a question that is pinpointed and highlighted by Martin Griffiths of the United Nations.
This is the biggest funding gap we've ever seen, mostly because the number of vulnerable people who need support is increasing fast.
Now, in the first 7 months of this year, the UN was able to raise only a third of the money that is needed. At the same time, the money that was needed for the Ukraine has been plentiful. So if I could just break that down, Tigray region in northern Ethiopia. Now, here there's been a civil war since November 2020, and the figures point to 4.5 million people who are in urgent need of emergency food. Of that number, 750,000 will be starving within the next few weeks. The World Food Programme has also reported that by October this year, it will have run out of food for people in Ethiopia. If you move across to Bangladesh, there you have your Rohingya refugees. Now, we're talking here about 1 million displaced people who all need emergency assistance. They are fully reliant on that, and any kind of decreased funding will affect shelter, will affect nutrition, will affect sanitation, with the result that many of them are embarking on dangerous boat journeys to try and reach a better future. If you move across to Somalia, here there has been a devastating drought, and the figures point to at least 1 million people there who are internally displaced, and another 7 million who are facing acute food security or insecurity. At the same time, you have 675,000 Syrian refugees in a camp in Jordan. They've been there since 2011, and that camp is in urgent need of repairs. There's no electricity, and there's an alarming humanitarian crisis unfolding there. By comparison, you look at the Ukraine. Now, there the initial appeal went out by the United Nations for more than $6 billion. That was to assist Ukrainian refugees both within the country and outside the country.